Hey everyone, it's me again, Brittany, and I'm here today to do the mid-year book freakout tag, just a mid-year check-in. If I sound weird, yes, I'm sick. I know. I know. All you have to know is I'm feeling a lot better, but basically, I got sick. It wasn't from being irresponsible. I mean, at least as far as I know. I literally stay home all the time. If I go out, it's only for work, and I wear my mask the entire time, but things still happen, so I am ill, but it's okay. I'm feeling quite a bit better. Still definitely not even halfway to 100%. I just feel like there's not much else to say. So all that I will say is just like be careful, because I was extremely careful. And obviously it's still a thing. I don't know how else to talk about it. Sorry. It sucks, but that's okay. That's life, and I'm getting better, and I'm really grateful for that. So back to the topic of the video. We're doing the mid-year book freakout tag today, and before we can jump into the actual meat of the questions, I do just want to give a big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, which is going to be Book of the Month. Book of the Month is an online book subscription service that has a focus on promoting new and emerging authors, and they do this by giving you 5 book picks every single month to choose one from. These 5 book picks are chosen from hundreds of new and early release titles by Book of the Month's team, so that you can be sure you're getting a well-curated list of books. And so every single month, out of those 5 book picks, you get to pick one of those to get sent to your door in one of these blue boxes. They are still risk-free though, meaning that any month that you don't like any of the book picks, or that you would like to, you are able to skip and move your credit on to the next month with no penalty whatsoever. But even for the months that you don't skip, they are still going to be the best price for new adult fiction hardcover books, and you can definitely be sure of that. And they've actually even given me a code for you guys to use, and it's going to be my name, Brittany, and it will get you your first box for $9.99, which is just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much to Book of the Month. Just to give you a little bit of information about the July book picks. So the first one that is inside of the box this month is going to be We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, which is just a heartwarming story about a girl who has to return to her family, her Irish Catholic family, after up and leaving them 5 years before with no explanation. And she comes to the realization that she needed them, but they also needed her. And it's just following their story of rekindling their relationship and kind of tiptoeing around issues. But their family secrets and dark past start to catch up even when she is just trying to reconnect. The next book pick for July is going to be 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. This is a thriller, unsurprisingly, and it has to do with a quarantine couple. A couple that, just up and quarantine together, and how that's gonna go, because this is a thriller, so we can only assume it's not gonna go according to plan, The next book pick for July is gonna be Sisters in Arms by Kaya Alderson, and this is actually such an interesting story. I am really fascinated. It's following the first and only all-black battalion of the Women's Army Corps, and it is the 6888 group. Group isn't probably the right word for it, but they just say the legendary 6888, that's their battalion, and I'm so fascinated to see more about it. It is, again, based on a true story, and I know that it's just going to be very intense, really. The fourth book pick for July is going to be Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby, and this is actually about 2 dads, one black, one white, and their special skill set that's going to lend them to try and discover who murdered their son. And this sounds good. Detective stuff, revenge stuff, I'm here for it. And the last book pick for July is going to be The People We Keep by Allison Larkin. This cover's so pretty. And this is actually following April, who gets in a fight with her dad, and she actually just packs up and leaves because there wasn't anything left for her in her small town, and there's nothing left for her with her family, and it's going to just be the discovery of the world and her journey, and there might be a found family trope, which, I know I love, but I feel like a lot of you guys do too. These are going to be, again, the 5 book picks for Book of the Month's July books. Like I said, they're all incredibly fascinating. Honestly, I think that the one that has me the most interested is going to be Sisters in Arms by Kaya Alderson, but the close second is going to be 56 Days. very different kinds of stories, one historical, one thriller, but they're both just kind of intriguing me. But if you guys, again, wanted to get your hands on one of the book picks for this month, don't forget to use my code Brittany, and you'll get it for $9.99. So thank you so much to Book of the Month, and thank you to you guys for supporting my channel in this way. Honestly, you guys have no idea how much this helps me out, and so I just really appreciate that you guys sit through it, and that brands like Book of the Month reach out to me in the first place. So yeah, let's get back to the video. I have a stack of books over here, and I'm ready to kind of check in with you guys. This year has been, wow, it's been a year. It's been a year, seriously. I have had a lot change in the first part of this year. I moved, I'm gonna be moving again later, way later, thank gosh. And I've just been kind of in chaos, absolute chaos. And my reading, I actually have read a lot more than I thought I had. I think I finished like 25-ish books, which I'm okay with. I put a lot of pressure on myself, guys. I used to be able to read 20 books in a month. I used to read like I couldn't breathe without reading, and to be totally fair, like when that stopped was mostly just when my life started going into chaos. So I don't know if when everything finally settles back down, I'll be reading that much again. But for right now, I'm just like loving what I am reading, because it does me no good to sit there and compare myself to people that can read so much in a month. And it doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't. Kudos to the people that can read a ton in a month. I was one of those people. Kudos to the people that can't read anything in a month. Like, the fact of the matter is, we're all here because we love books, and I'm trying to remember that. I'm trying to remember that this isn't a numbers game, and I don't know why anyone started trying to make it one, you know? Why I started trying to make it one for myself, I guess. But 23, that's how many books I've read. 23 books is not bad. It's not bad at all. It's actually pretty good. So let's just get into it. I don't know what that is. You know, I'm still healing, so my brain isn't entirely here. So if I'm going off on tangents, I'm blaming that. Okay, so question number 1 is the best book you've read so far in 2021. And this one, I was kind of going back and forth. I technically didn't give this 5 stars. I gave it 4.5, but I'm going with These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This is one of the books that I most thoroughly enjoyed that I've read this year, that I took my time reading, that I just had a really good time the whole time, and I appreciate it for that. I mean, I didn't give it 5 stars. It wasn't perfect, but it stuck with me. I definitely want to read the sequel, and I'm happy that I read it. Oh, and if you were wondering, I believe this is the Fairy Loot. Yep, the Fairy Loot exclusive, because it has the sticker. So that's why it's pink and pretty. But this takes place in the 20s in Shanghai, and it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but if Romeo and Juliet were mobsters. It's so cool. It gives me very strong Layer of Dreams vibes from the Diviners. It has like a very intriguing illness that's being spread throughout Shanghai, and the mobsters kind of have to team together, even though they've always been rivals, to face this new threat. And there's just even more deliciousness to it, because Roma and Juliet have history, but not a good history. It was really good. I enjoyed this so much more than I thought I would. So question number 2 is the best sequel you've read so far in 2021. I haven't read very many sequels this year, but I loved Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. It was just everything that I wanted out of like a new adult fantasy style book. It was just so much fun. It is obviously the sequel to Crown of Gilded Bones of something. Woo! I'm gonna let that Crown of, no, that's the 3rd book. Okay, wait. Kingdom of, no. What is it? Oh. From Blood and Ash. It's the sequel to From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I've only read the first 2 books, but I absolutely adored the second one. I reread it like 3 times in a row. It's new adult. There's a lot of steamy scenes. Is it quality? Well, I had fun, so I mean, that doesn't really matter, but I wouldn't say so. This isn't like the greatest piece of art, but is it a really good time in my opinion? As I've said like 30 times, yes. Number 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to, and I kind of try to stick myself to only talking about books that I own since I'm on a book buying ban of sorts. So I am going with Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This is a book that I've had my eye on for quite a while, and when I got it in a Book of the Month box, I was so excited, and I have not read it. I haven't even picked it up. I don't know. It follows Ariadne, the Princess of Crete, and I love anything that has to do with Greek mythology, that has to do with retellings of Greek mythology. I just have a great time with them, so I think that this is still something that I really want to read, even if oh my god, I'm tripping over my words. Even if I haven't picked it up yet. So, yes. There's a lot of books, though, that could technically count for this question, but we're gonna go with that. Question number 4 is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I was looking into releases for the second half of the year, and there are not too many that I'm super excited about. So I did actually narrow it down to just 2. The first one is The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik, and this is going to be the second book, the follow-up to the Scholomance. It's not The Last Scholomance. It's the sequel to A Deadly Education, which I read last year and I absolutely adored. It was so different than I thought it would be. It is a magic story, it is about a magic school, but it is nothing like Harry Potter, which is definitely what I was expecting going into it. It is a school that is out to get its students. There aren't teachers that I remember. There are just classes, definitely classes, there are grades, but these students are put into this school and then they just have to try and survive until graduation. But graduating classes get smaller and smaller, and the monsters get more and more hungry. I mean, it was just really cool. I really liked the dynamic of our main character and all of her friends. I just liked her. She just has a lot of baggage, and I tend to like characters that have a lot of baggage. Unlikable characters are some of my favorite main characters, and she definitely falls under that category, so I'm excited to read the second book. And I don't know if I mentioned, but it's coming out in September. And I did kind of put this one in as like a little bit of a shout out, but Our Violent Ends, which is the second book, obviously, to These Violent Delights, it comes out in November, so I'm also really looking forward to that. There's more, obviously, but I figured I'd talk about those two. Oof. Question number 5 is your biggest disappointment of the year. And for this one, I'm a little mixed. Technically, my biggest disappointment is going to be You Had Me at Hola. It's actually a book I DNF'd, though, which is why I'm not talking about it now. I wanted to love it so bad. Telenovelas are something I grew up on, and that's a big basis of this book, but we're not talking about that one today. I didn't finish it. Maybe I would have liked it if I finished it. My actual biggest disappointment, and this isn't my lowest rated book of the year, but it's the one that I had the highest hopes for and ended up giving 2 stars. That's going to be The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This is a book I was so excited about. I mean, when I first read the summary that it has to do with this historian that goes on vacation and she finds like a lost bottle that sends her reeling on a trip, finding out about this lost apothecary that used to sell poisons to women. It just gave me such strong Aqua Tofana vibes. I say this every time, but if you're a Bailey Sarian fan, then you know how exciting something that could have been like Aqua Tofana was gonna be for me. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should find Bailey Sarian and watch that. This was not that. I was extremely upset when I read this. It just wasn't for me. I don't think that this was like marketed perfectly. Like the marketing is so strong on like women like opposing men, and like, yes, that is ultimately I think what kind of is the story here. For most of the story, we're following our main character she just I don't want to like spoil anything, but she is just not that strong female lead that I originally thought was going to be the strong female lead. Does she ultimately get to that point? Kind of. But like the story of the like Aqua Tofana style character, hers was also really disappointing. It was just really saddening. Like these were really sad women, and I wanted it to be more empowering, and that's on me. This is definitely written for someone. I know that this is definitely going to be enjoyable to most people, but I personally just didn't find anything that I loved about it. One of the things that probably affected my opinion on this more than it should is that our main character was struggling with the idea that she really wanted to be a mom, and I tend to not like stories that revolve around that. And that's definitely a very, very like personal preference. I don't like stories about pregnancy or things like that. And she was really thinking about it the whole time. And so was everyone. And I just didn't like that. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying that you can't be like a strong female lead and also want to be a mother. You definitely 1000% can. But I was expecting poisoning men. I wasn't expecting you like talking about your woes of not being a mother. You know? I don't know. This is probably a very unfair and biased review, but that could be said about most of my reviews. Number 6 is your biggest surprise, and for this one, I'm actually going with Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. This, I'm saying it was my biggest surprise because it's a book that I have had on my TBR for a long time. But I never wanted to read it because of all of the negative reviews surrounding it. I think that when it first came out, everyone wanted it because of the cover, and then they read it and they're like, this is boring and I don't like it, or whatever it was that people would say, and I was therefore really hesitant to pick it up. And I'm so glad I finally did this year. Yes, it does have to do with two people who don't really have anyone else to turn to, so they turn to each other. They're each other's emergency contacts, but it's just so much more than that. It is not like a cutesy, like, oh, we just met outside of the hospital and now we're gonna be each other's emergency contacts. No, it was not that. It was very much like them relying on each other, but like emotionally, like emotional support. And I thought that their story was really heartwarming. I think that it was really healthy. They both had a lot going on in their lives and they both had very opposite journeys to take, but I think that they were super respectful to each other about their kinds of journeys, and I really liked that. I thought that it was, again, just like a good depiction of like a healthy friendship, and I thought it was going to be so much more like shoved down my throat, they're gonna fall in love. And I'm not saying it's not a romance, but I am saying that it starts as a really great friendship. I liked it. I don't know why I always do this to myself, because I feel like every time that I listen to other reviewers' opinions on books and don't end up reading something, when I finally read it, I end up adoring it. Like, the lower you put my expectations, the higher I will perceive something, while the higher up someone else reviews a book, the more likely I am to hate it. Oh, you know. I'm not saying that to be quirky. I don't know. That's something, you know, to think about on another day when I have more of a brain. Question number 7 is favorite new author, as in new or new to you. While I do like a lot of the books that I've read so far this year, I wouldn't say that any of the authors have become favorites. There are none that I would say, like, I will buy anything that they put out. The closest being potentially, like, Jennifer L. Armentrout, just because I've been really enjoying her series, but that's one series. I'm still not interested in reading almost anything else by her. And the other one being Mary H.K. Choi. I haven't read her newest book, so I guess that would kind of like be a defining factor, but other than that, there isn't anything, really. Chloe Gong, I'm intrigued by, but like, again, there's just no author that has like stood out to me as like being my all-time favorite or a new all-time favorite or auto-buy or anything like that. Question number 8 is newest fictional crush. At first I was gonna say I didn't really have one, and then I thought of 2, but we're gonna go with this one for right now, and that's gonna be Misha from Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. If you guys watched my newest vlog, I'll link it up above, but I finally read Penelope Douglas. Like, I finally read this book, and then I finally read 2 more books. Like, I just really went on a Penelope Douglas kick. Those are the only books I've read so far, so don't ask me for any kind of video on it. I still don't know anything, I don't think. But Misha in Punk 57? Guys, I don't know what it says about me that my favorite new, like, male character that I've read is in a bully romance. It doesn't say anything about me. You know what? He's just kind of hot. He's just kind of hot, which I feel a little weird saying because he's in high school, but if I was in high school, I would find him hot. And Punk 57, if you didn't know, it's a romance. There's definitely some steamy scenes, but it's following Misha and Ryan, who have been pen pals since they were little kids. They got put together as pen pals on accident because they both kind of have, like, ambiguous names, and they ended up being a boy-girl pairing when everyone else was paired with their gender, and then they just continued their pen pal romance. Well, not romance, but their pen pal friendship forever, until they're teenagers and they're about to graduate from high school. They had always made a decision not to go looking for each other because they didn't want to ruin the pen pal friendship, but obviously that's not gonna work because this is a steamy romance. So ultimately, one of them discovers the other and they don't tell each other. So it turns into just a bully romance. They end up hating each other. It's on the steamy side, I want to reiterate. So like if you're going into this expecting cutesy romance, first of all, no, it's not that. It's not even a little bit of that. I mean, it's a little bit of that, I guess, but very little. Expect problematic, chaotic, teenager romance smut. Now, the next question is your newest favorite character, and to be fair, this was the other character that I had kind of put down as a newish fictional crush, but I was just gonna say Lore from Lore by Alexandra Bracken. She's just such a badass. First of all, I loved this book. It's following modern day New York, but there's a little bit of a twist because a long time ago, there were some gods that tried to have an uprising against Zeus, and they lost. They lost miserably, and as punishment, they have to walk the earth for 1 week or 2 weeks out of every few years, and they are mortal in that time. If they're killed, they really do die, and whoever kills them takes their place as that god. So that is the twist that we're living with, but only a few certain families know about this, clans as they are, and they're always vying to obviously kill a god and kind of have their place in Olympus. So Lore, though, she doesn't really have a family or a clan anymore. She's alone, and she wants nothing to do with this. She wants nothing to do with anything that has to do with the Greeks or gods or this game. But of course she's going to get brought into it because Athena goes and looks for her. One of the last living real gods that hasn't been killed and turned into, you know, a different person. But I loved Lore. I thought that her story was so good. Like I said, I just tend to love unlikable characters. She's been through so much. I don't know, I really like the romance in general in this, but when I was thinking about it, like, I didn't love it because of the guy. Yeah, he was a sweetie pie. Loved him. Sweet, sweet. So sweet. He was not the interesting part, though. The interesting part was Lore, and I think she's the reason that the romance was so, like, amazing. I don't know. She's a great character. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. I have said this multiple times. I really don't cry when I read. I don't cry often in general, unless I'm angry. Then I cry. And then I get angrier, and I cry more. It's amazing. I do get overwhelmed, and the book that I would say made me feel very overwhelmed is going to be Permanent Record by Mary H.K. Choi. I felt a lot. It's very anxiety driven for me. I talked briefly about her books in general in a vlog that I was doing. I'm not sure if that vlog ever went up now that I'm thinking about it, but if it did, I'll link it up above. The main characters are going through a lot of struggles, just mentally, where like a lot of it has to do with motivation, a lot of it has to do with just kind of finding your way in the world. And I mentioned from my perspective of someone that is ADHD, I mentioned that from my perspective, it really seemed like her characters have some strong pulls in that direction, and it's hard to read at times because it's just a lot and it hits really close to home for me. And I would say that that happened a lot in Permanent Record because it felt like this guy's life was falling apart. You didn't know how he was going to pick himself up. Like, he wasn't mentally capable enough to pick himself up at times. Like, it just felt like such a steep hill to climb. And it made me so nervous. I don't like reading books like that where it just doesn't seem like there is any hope. Like, you can see them making the wrong decisions over and over again, and they're still making them because obviously they don't know it's a bad decision. And it made me so anxious, and it really overwhelmed me. I didn't know if I wanted to finish it at a certain point. I just was like too worked up over it. It just was so close to home. I know that this is ways that people have felt about me. I was never in as absolute chaos as he was, but it was so easy for me to see while I was reading this how I could have been him. Pablo is a college dropout of sorts, and he's trying to figure out what to do with his life, and this girl falls into his life, and she is chaos but beautiful, and she has a lot of things going for her, and he just kind of starts to let everything that he had going for him slide, and he already was having so many issues with family and friends and finances and just so much. It was just hard for me to read because I was comparing it to my own life. I had a lot of anxiety, but I will say that the ending was worth it. Number 11 is a book that made you happy. I was looking through the books that I read this year, and I can't say honestly that any of the books that I've already read are ones that I just honestly think made me just happy. Like, there were good books, but they weren't making me happy. So for this, I'm going with kind of a cop-out, but it's a book that I'm currently reading. Yes, guys, I'm finally currently reading it. And that's going to be A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This, I feel like I don't need to explain it. If you've been on my channel for any amount of time, you know that I just really love and resonate with Sarah J. Maas's writing, so being in one of her books in a world that I adore, because the Court of Thorns and Roses world is my favorite world that she's created, just being back in that world, whether it's sad or not, because it's kind of sad, it makes me happy. I feel like I'm stepping back into like a cozy home. Excited, I'm finally reading this. And I am vlogging it, but I'm not sure. Let me know if you guys still would want to see that. Number 12 is the most beautiful book that you've bought this year or received. And for this, I am going with The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is the illumicrate edition of The Last Wish. It's beautiful. It doesn't have a dust jacket. It's just like a gray matte cover and with like glossy black tree line and the Witcher symbol, you know, for the wolves, because that's where Geralt trained, if you didn't know. I am just so happy that I finally bought this. It has the black sprayed edges. It's just stunning. It's so stunning. Look at these end papers. I've wanted this ever since I saw that illumicrate was coming out with this, and I'm so happy that I finally kind of bit the bullet and bought it for myself. I'm a huge fan of The Witcher. Huge fan. Big fan. Haven't finished the series yet, but I have one of the beautiful books. Oh, the series also is like notorious for having really ugly covers. It's the video game covers, so I'm glad that I actually own one of the covers that isn't atrocious. It's not atrocious. They're not atrocious. I don't think they're atrocious, but this is beautiful. And question number 13 is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I feel like there's so many that I would hope to get to, but no pressure. The only book that I will say I want to read this year, and not only because one of my best friends got this for me and she really wants me to read it, so I should, but also because I've been really excited to read it, is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. The Night Circus is one of my all-time favorite books of all time, obviously. And I have been dying to read The Starless Sea ever since I heard that Erin Morgenstern was finally coming out with a new book. And I have pretty high hopes for it, but I don't want to get too high of hopes. But my best friend did absolutely adore this book. She knows how much I loved The Night Circus, which is why she actually bought me this amazing hardcover copy when she went to Europe 2 years ago. I want to read this year. I want to read it. Sam, if you're watching this, I'm gonna read this for you. And for me. For us, you know, to finally discuss it. That's what I want to do. This is the book I want to read. There's, again, a lot, but I'm not putting too much pressure on myself because I don't want to. That's, I think, all the questions for the mid-year book freakout tag. So I'm sorry if I was a little all over the place for this. I feel like I stumbled over all my words. I feel like I'm overheating. I am quite a bit better than I was a week ago, but I'm still not okay, I guess. But I figured sitting still and being able to film, I could do that for you guys. Now, we'll see how the editing goes for this, but hopefully I can get it up by the end of this week. So that's gonna be it for this video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you guys are staying healthy and staying safe. But it was fun. I'm just nervous about the editing because I don't know what I was saying for half the time. Other than that, though, I hope this little update on what I've been reading was helpful. Let me know what you've been reading. Let me know just actually tell me what your most anticipated release is for the second half of the year, because I swear I just really didn't find very many, but I feel like there must be more. So let me know that, and I will see you guys in my comments. Thank you again to Book of the Month for sponsoring. Check out my description. I have a link for you to follow, and don't forget to use my code if you would like to support my channel. So, yeah. Or support yourself, you know? I don't know if it does anything for me, but I'm assuming it can't be bad. But that's gonna be it for this video today, guys. I love you all so, so much. And I will see you in my next one. Excuse my nasally voice. Bye-bye.
We're beautiful.